Imagine a different time in America. It is 1969, 46 years ago, at a rock concert near Bethel, New York. It is Woodstock, a famous concert now, but little known at the time. The rock star, Jimi Hendrix, performs a rocked-out guitar version of the national anthem. Is he giving the anthem an update, a breath of fresh air, or is he mocking it as a protest of the Vietnam War? Hendrix removes all doubt during his performance when he incinerates the American flag on stage. Conservatives are outraged at the flag desecration. Liberals, calling forth the constitutional right of freedom of expression, defend Hendrix's right to burn the flag. Today, different groups in America are arguing over another flag, the flag that represented the Confederate States of America, or one of its military units 150 years ago. This time, liberals express outrage that the flag was flown on the grounds of South Carolina State Capitol building, or anywhere for that matter, while some conservatives argue for the right of freedom of expression. So, who cares? We live in South Dakota, not South Carolina. Our state was never part of the Confederacy. The Civil War was hardly our war at all, but it's not that easy. All Americans have an obligation to stamp out racism, but they also have a shared inheritance in the First Amendment and the freedoms it provides. Ensuring that we deal with this Confederate flag crisis, pulling down this banner of hatred without pulling down our First Amendment rights, must be important to us all. After researching this topic for 2 weeks and reading arguments from people all over America, I am fully prepared to inform you about the important issues that surround this flag crisis and provide a possible solution we can all live with and retain our freedom under. Here's the key. While the Confederate flag or the Confederate battle flag is a symbol of treason, slavery, and racism, like any symbol, word, or phrase, it cannot be banned in a country which values and exercises true freedom of expression. Today, I will talk about the need to protect our freedom of expression and how that can be done as we deal with this issue. First, I will talk about the issue of our freedom of speech. Unfortunately, the right of free speech and free expression is under attack in America today. An example of this, college speech codes, is explored in an article by the Foundation for Individual Rights of Education. College speech codes are restrictions on expressions or specific words on campus imposed by the college or university. To limit protests, schools may add a few free speech zones or require certain permission ahead of time to use such language and expressions on campus. But free speech cannot be arbitrarily limited if it is to stay one of our vital freedoms. These codes, in effect, in many campuses across the USA, violate our freedom of speech. As the Foundation article concludes, a nation that does not educate in freedom will not survive in freedom and will not even know it had lost it. College speech codes are not the only violation that I will talk about. I will also talk about government restrictions on social media. According to an article done by Kim Zetter for Wired, Twitter sued the government for violating its First Amendment rights. Twitter had requested to inform their users about government surveillance on their site just as other companies were allowed to do. Each time they tried to get the permission, they had failed. After so many failures, Twitter had decided to sue the government for violating the First Amendment. These are only 2 examples of how our freedom of speech and expression is being violated every day. This is a growing problem that needs a solution. In order to deal with the flag crisis, we need to thread the needle, find a way to pull it down from the South Carolina Capitol grounds, as has now been done, but without banning the symbol of the flag overall. As much as we may dislike it, as much as we may hate it as a symbol of racism and oppression, no symbol, no word, no idea can be banned if we are to enjoy the First Amendment freedom of expression, freedom of speech that has been a hallmark of American liberties since the drafting of the Bill of Rights. Americans need to restore their commitment to the idea expressed in the famous quote from Voltaire. I disapprove of what you have to say, but I will defend it to the death your right to say it. To solve this problem, Americans should not get on the bandwagon of banning the Confederate flag even though they hate it. Most people believe this flag is a symbol of racism. However, some believe that it is a symbol for much more. According to a BBC article written by Tom Gagan, many supporters actually use the flag as a remembrance of family who fought in the Civil War, those who died in it, or just to remember the war itself. Americans need to remember what happened in the Civil War, even if they do not like it. It was a dark time in American history and it needs to be remembered. A quote by George Santayana said, Those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it. If we will whitewash the history of slavery so that people do not remember it, that it occurred, Santayana's prophecy is more likely to come true. Another way to solve this problem would be for Americans to make the First Amendment argument. Americans all need to defend the right. It is being violated daily across the country. If we do not stick up for ourselves, that right could disappear altogether. Americans need to stand up together. As Lincoln paraphrased the word from Christ, a house divided against itself will not stand. Our nation needs to work together to protect this amendment. The temptation today, as has always existed, is to surrender freedom, and specifically the freedom of expression, to attain other valued goals, especially security. As Benjamin Franklin said, those who surrender freedom for security will not have, nor do they deserve, either one. What we as a country need to find is a solution to our various problems without surrendering our freedom of expression rights. College speech codes are put in place of order to put the hard edges of the kind of political and social debates that occur, especially among young people. They are a way to socialize and civilize us. But notice they also place the university, which is typically an agent of government, in the role of monitoring speech and punishing types and content of speech. They violate the First Amendment. Perhaps instead universities could offer seminars, residence hall sessions, and even courses in how to treat each other when engaging in social and political debate. By pursuing the educational function rather than one based upon punishment, universities could still meet their goal without imposing speech codes and their unfortunate abuse of the First Amendment and their freedom. Similarly, while the government has put restrictions on Twitter in order to end the debate in opposition to surveillance designed in this era or terror to secure the people of the United States, there must be a way to pursue a goal of security from terrorism without violating First Amendment right of freedom of expression. Rather than stifle debate, perhaps the government and nonprofit agencies could fully engage in the debate explaining why various surveillance techniques are necessary and good for American people. In this way, the government could secure voluntary compliance among social media institutions rather than impose it and trample everyone's freedom. Pursuing this method, the American people could have both security and freedom, Franklin's dream and a dream we all should share. There is a genuine and growing need for America to protect perhaps our greatest freedom, that of expression. While the Confederate flag or the Confederate battle flag is a symbol of treason, slavery, and racism, like any symbol, word, or phrase, it cannot be banned in a country which values and exercises true freedom of expression. So let us defend the Confederate flag from such an unconstitutional ban. Let us prevent this sign of hatred and racism become a way of destroying our freedom of speech rights. Even if you hate the Confederate flag, as I do, it is important that we all defend our First Amendment rights.